Good afternoon and welcome to Session 3. So this morning, our keynote address and Sessions 1 and 2 provided an overview and exploration of the geopolitical and economic challenges facing the region. The sessions this afternoon will take us from the regional scale down to the national scale, as we look first at Malaysia, then the Philippines, then Thailand, and finally Indonesia. In these sessions, we seek to pinpoint and subsequently explore the underlying currents and countercurrents at work in each of these countries and how they can shape or determine key political and policy changes over the next month. Where possible and relevant, we relate our discussions to this year's themes of trust and power. Coming now to Malaysia. The country recently hit the one-year mark of the Anwar Ibrahim-led unity government. This administration came to power under unusual circumstances, due in no small measure to the country's increasingly fluid political context. While Malaysia has traditionally practiced coalition politics, I would argue that since 2020, it has entered a new phase where power is no longer obtained by a simple governing alliance, but instead by leaders forging expansive coalitions of coalitions. Beyond the country's citizens, prime ministers now need to worry about their own parties, their coalition partners, and now their partner coalitions in a bid to preserve their parliamentary majorities. Consequently, in today's Malaysia, power is increasingly difficult to attain, maintain, and retain, as evidenced by the short tenures of Mahathir Mohamad, the second time, Muhyiddin Yassin, and then Ismail Sabri Yaakob. Cognizant of this, Datuk Seri Anwar moved immediately to establish his parliamentary majority, bind his coalition partners through a memorandum of understanding, and also allocate cabinet positions strategically. Over the subsequent 12 months, PM Anwar has worked hard to earn the trust of Malaysians. Policies such as the New Industrialization Master Plan, the midterm review of the 12th Malaysia Plan, and the 2023 and 2024 budgets have sought to add detail to the Malaysia Madani framework. There are now no important elections on the immediate horizon to absorb the Prime Minister's bandwidth, and a recent cabinet reshuffle has boosted the collective experience of the country's key decision makers. Nevertheless, there are a number of indicators signaling that trust or rapport still needs to be established with significant swathes of the Malaysian electorate. During the state government elections last year, candidates fielded by the unity government were virtually eliminated in 3 states, Kedah, Kelantan, and Terengganu. And also, the administration suffered an important erosion of support in Selangor and Penang. Recent opinion polls have shown that Anwar Ibrahim's personal popularity has decreased relative to a year ago, and rumors of backdoor plots to oust the Prime Minister continue. To help us deepen our understanding of what the months ahead may bring, our 2 speakers, both practicing politicians with perceptive perspectives from different political positions, will help us to understand the key drivers and critical junctures that lie ahead for Malaysia. They'll also help us understand what is the thinking within each of their respective groupings. My far right, we have our first speaker, Datuk Seri Dr. Mujahid Yusof Rawah, and he is a senator in Malaysia's Dewan Negara. He is Deputy President of Parti Amanah Negara and Chair of Pakatan Harapan of Perak, and he was Member of Parliament for Parit Buntar in Perak for 3 terms, and he also served as Minister of Religious Affairs in the Prime Minister's Department during the 2018 to 2020 Pakatan Harapan administration. On my immediate right, we have YB1 Ahmad Faisal, and he is a Member of Parliament for Machang in Kelantan, and the head of Armada, the youth wing of Parti Pribumi Bersatu Malaysia. He was formerly Deputy Minister of National Unity, and he has also served as Deputy Minister of Youth and Sports. Each speaker has about 15 minutes, after which we will proceed to Q&A. So if I can now invite Dr. Mujahid to take the floor. Sila.
Thank you very much, Francis. My fellow panelists, distinguished speakers, and all the participants in this global regional forum Outlook 2024. You know, the topic given to us is about possibilities. I'm trying to find possibilities for this session, whether all of you can endure with us or bear with us within this 1 hour. And I found out that the only session that has politician on top of this is only us, both of us. And it's Malaysia. So I'm trying to find possibilities at the end if, you know, all of you can bear with us and try to understand the complex situation of Malaysian politics. The topic was about possibilities. Possibilities relates so much about prospect, the future, and also hope. Every new possibilities is always the desired outcome for us politicians. I shall speak more on my capacity as a man on the ground, rather as an academician or as an analyst. So bear with me my simple explanation on how Malaysian politics works. You know, in politics, new possibilities necessitates a lot of risk. And every desired outcome precedes a calculated move and a clear political strategy. But again, we are warned by the old Arabic saying that I want to share with you. Not everything that can be counted counts. For there come a time the wind blows not to the desire of the ship. In Arabic, it simply says, "Laisa kullu ma yatamannahu al-mar'u yudrikhu ta'ti riyah bima la tashtahi as-sufun." That's who we are, politicians. Unexpected things happen. Uncertainties happen. Having said that, I was always advised by my late father, Haji Yusuf Rawah, one of the founding members of the PAS Islamic Party. He served as a president. He told me when I asked him I wanted to join politics. He said, "Son, good, welcome. But I must warn you that there are things that makes you a good politician." And he said this to me, and I want to share it with you. I don't know whether it has to do with what we are discussing. He said that, you know, to be a good politician is to have idealism. I think good politician has idealism. No politician comes out without idealism. But he said at the same time, be practical. Face the realities. You can't walk with your both feet together. You either walk your right feet in front and your left behind, and your left feet behind, your right foot in front. You can't walk jumping, you know. And he said, if you can do that, my son, you'll be a good politician. So let's come back to Malaysia. It has something to do with that, actually. Has been mentioned by Francis, never in the history of Malaysian politics we have 3 prime ministers in one term. There was Tun Mahathir, whom I was given the honor to serve as a Minister of Religious Affairs under the Prime Minister's Department. Then come the Sheraton move, and Tan Sri Mahyuddin Yassin came as the Prime Minister. Then Tan Sri Ismail Sabri came. So we have 3 Prime Ministers in a row within one term. I think that's something very new to the Malaysian politics. I don't know about other countries in Asia, but Malaysia, it's something new, a new reality emerged. Post-general election 15, GE15, also witnessed a new reality. The parliament was hung. No political bloc are qualified to form a government by their own bloc, which doesn't happen in the Malaysian politics, actually. But that's exactly the new reality. And I think in understanding this new reality, I am very positive, actually. I've been advocating ideas of national consensus, which is very difficult to achieve, actually. But what happened in the new realities in Malaysia, all political blocs were forced to sit down and talk among themselves and see the country, the nation first, then their own political interests. And for me, the national consensus that we aspired emerged post-GE15, where there was this urge to form a national unity government. Now, for me, that's outstanding. All these years, there was never an understanding, all political blocs sits together. But I think the people have said it. And because of that, the national unity government was in place. Against this backdrop, Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim, the Prime Minister, was tasked to formulate a unity government. If anybody asks me, what is Anwar Ibrahim's advantage at this moment of time? I would say that that is his strongest point, where he was able to fulfill this mission. And I say it was a right move, a right moment, while we were talking about distrust to the political institution. This is a great opportunity. This was a good possibilities where we can regain back the trust. And for the first time, all political blocs do not talk about themselves, but gave the opportunity for the people to tell them, look, enough is enough. You know, we need a stable government. And Anwar was there to form the government with other political blocs who wanted, or who, by their own will, wants to see a strong and stable government. Ladies and gentlemen, risk and challenges. Got another 7 minutes to go. Hey, by the way, don't ever believe when a politician say, I won't be long, my speech will be, just don't believe them. They will go on and go on and go on. So I will try to be very precise. Challenges, definitely, challenges. Nice thing you talk about unity, nice thing you talk about possibilities, nice thing you talk about national consensus, very good. But in politics, there is always challenges. There's always a risk. There is always, I wouldn't say problem. I consider it more as a challenges. And to give an understanding of the Malaysian politics, I'd like to share with the participant today that the founding fathers of Malaysia knew that in future, such divisive politics will occur. And that is why our forefathers has built Malaysia, this nation, based on tolerance. I know some of you don't like the word tolerance, because when you say tolerance, you have to endure. I don't like you, but I don't have any choice. That's the implication of saying, I tolerate you. We are not in that position at the moment. We are talking about our forefathers, the founding nation of Malaysia, wanted to move from just tolerance to a higher level, which is acceptance, which is important in the Malaysian context. You have to accept the multicultural, multi-diversity, multi-racial entity that we have in Malaysia. And if you ask me, it was their aspiration to see a multi-Malaysia is based on the breach of respect and trust. But that didn't happen years later. What should have happened was we were going towards a higher level of respect and trust among different races in our country. But what happened was we were going downwards. And I dare to say here that communalism remains a threat to the country. What is communalism? Communalism, frequently defined as a political ideology that exploits religious, cultural contrasts, religious and cultural contrasts for political gain. And this is the challenges. We heard of the word political contestation. Political contestation is about ideas. It's about idealism. You contest on that platform. And that is good for the people. But unfortunately, I have to register here, through time, the issue of Islam and Malayu has evolved and penetrated into the political contestation. Worse still, there is a tendency among political parties to compete among themselves for the sake of their constituent, to prove they are more Islamic and they are more Malay. This is, for me, a negative competition, and the issue of Islam is at threat, and the issue of Malay being sidelined is among those labels, issues that were played and very easily, and it is a fragile issue among their constituents. So if you ask me what is the task of Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim right now, his task is an uphill battle to diffuse this competition. For my last point here, I've got another 2 minutes to go. I am suggesting 4 measures to be taken by the current government. That measures is to deliberating Islam and Malayu. You have to deliberate Islam and Malayu by taking constitutional approach rather than emotive. Go back to the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? Debate on that. If you have to debate on Islam and Malayu, go, but debate based on the constitutional approach. And the parties concerned should be taken into the middle ground on a solution-based approach. Number 2, improving livelihood and tackling high cost of living among the Rakyats. You know, sometimes people don't believe in communalism, don't believe in racism. They are not racist, but they tend to become racist as a platform to express their anger to the failure of the government to give good livelihood to them. So there are 2 kinds of racism. One is intended racism. They believe in racism. That's more dangerous, actually. One is unintended. So in order for us to curb such threats to the country, we do need to have good economy, livelihood for the people, so that they do not resort to express their dissatisfaction to the government of the day. I would like to suggest here, in this international forum, and I hope Prime Minister hears this, criminalizing parties and members of the public who exploit race, religion, and royal. We call it 3 Rs. By enacting a law, which I name as the National Harmony Bill. We don't have that bill yet in Malaysia. I don't believe in laws, for your information, but sometimes laws are necessary to curb such a threat to the nation. Finally, is to aggressively promote the Madani policy to present progressive Islam and the compassionate Islam, rebutting the radical and divisive Islam. So if you ask me, ladies and gentlemen, for my final remark, Malaysia, new possibilities? Yes. there is. With new realities, possibilities are abundance. And Malaysia, under the leadership of Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, is moving towards the right direction. Possibilities depends also on how we manage to balance between idealism and reality. And finally, the bad news is the debate of Islam and Melayu is here to stay for long. But the good news is we need politicians with ideals, having the right mind, the right people going towards the center. And that is where I think the good news is Islam and Melayu will be debated constitutionally, objectively, and for the better of the nation. With that remark, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mujahid. You have just seen a beautiful example of a politician projecting powerful points punctually. So with this, if I can now invite our second speaker to please take the podium.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, ISIS, Mr. Choi, and Dr. Lee for inviting me today. Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to all delegates. It is an honor for me to be here. It is my first time in ISIS forum or conference, and I'm sure you know in Malaysia, back in Malaysia now, even at the very moment, things are very much fluid and heated with all sort of drama. And I hope I would not bring that kind of vibe here today. And I've seen how my fellow panelist, Dr. Mujahid, whom the last time I shared the same floor with him was about 10 years ago, when I was still just a student. And he was still in PAS by then. So today is the opposite. I have become I ran under PAS banner and won my first seat in Kelantan, a conservative state. And now, hopefully I could deliver some key points to convince some of you that even my party, Perikatan Nasional, where we currently holding 4 state government, could also project a better future for Malaysia. Before I go further, I would like to bring to your attention a key term that was acknowledged by Collins Dictionary last year when they nominated the word permacrisis as the word of the year in 2022. Permacrisis generally entails or being defined as extended period of instability and insecurity, especially due to or resulting from a series of catastrophic events. From the point of view of a Malay politician, a Malay nationalist politician, and coming from a Malay nationalist party, at the grassroots level, among my electorates and my voters and party members, the demise or the downfall of Barisan Nasional and UMNO in 2018 did spell or conjure a catastrophic imaginary in Malaysian politics among Malay electorates. Since then, Malaysian politics has never been the same. And we have still been plaguing with instability up to this very moment in Malaysia. Why I say so? Despite my fellow panelists, Dr. Mujahid, presume that identity politics do not play an important role in Malaysia to the extent that it could affect the trajectory and the development of government's delivery, I beg to differ. Even to this very day, the Prime Minister himself, if you were to notice, since he became or being appointed as Prime Minister, has never left his posturing to pander and gain trust from the Malay electorate. You could see every week he's been wearing consistently the national dress of the Malay, the Baju Melayu, and also consistently also hosting many Malay Islamic events at Sri Perdana. Why? Because he knows in order for the government to be able to move smoothly, they need the trust from the majority of Malay voters. Despite all the announcements made by the government lately during the budget and during the midterm review of our National Development Plan, the result from recent by-election in Kemaman, Terengganu, the Malay heartland, was really a profound indicator what's currently happening in Malaysian politics. Used to be a stronghold for Barisan Nasional, but now it has become a stronghold for an Islamist party called Parti Islam Malaysia or Islamic Party of Malaysia, PAS. The majority won by the current sitting Chief Minister of Terengganu, who ran at in Kemaman seat, was interestingly quite a significant jump. They received about 10,000 votes, extra votes from the voters. And that voters could not be from our traditional voters of PAS or Bersatu. It shows that even UMNO voters, the traditional UMNO voters in Malay heartland, do not believe in the current government's promises and projections about Malay security and development ideas. Why is that so? When we talk about trust and power as a major theme in this conference, in Malaysian politics, trust and power revolves around identity politics. One cannot play down or downplay such dimension because primordially, the current setup of Malaysian society is still based on communal setting. Our previous or original inception of Malaysia as a federation begins with consociational politics under the first called Perikatan, then Barisan, the National Front. No party could ever govern without the support from all races. But all parties within that coalition knows their respective duties and role to deliver the votes and also promises to their electorates. But for the past 20 years, since 1998, things have started to change with new coalitional politics driven by the current Prime Minister, which have changed the landscape of Malaysian politics dramatically. Instead of racial or communal-based partisan politics, we now have more like a multi-racial kind of coalition that delivers hope and also promises to Malaysian electorates. But it has shown that in the past general election, such coalition works in certain geographical location in Malaysia, but not in every one of it. In the Malay heartland, Malay and Islamic politics reign supreme. From the statistic that I would like to share here, for example, in Kedah, the northern state, Perikatan Nasional swiped clean all the seats with around 56% of votes from the electorates there. In Kelantan, 64%, more than half. In Terengganu, 62%. That shows that identity politics in Malaysia play significant role in determining whether you can win or not in some of those locations. In the West Coast, things might be different. Things might be more amenable to multiracial coalition and politics. But, as been shown clearly in the last state elections, last June, such sentiment of identity politics also play a role in determining the support of voters toward certain parties. As much as my fellow panelists would like to give a good news or have an optimist view about the current government, as an opposition member, I would like to give an honest criticism in the sense that as long as the government of today do not provide comfort and a clear plan to the majority Malay voters, things will remain unstable for years to come. That's why, if you were to notice, the Prime Minister himself has either openly or secretly extend his hand towards one of our coalition members, PAS, because he knows PAS carries a huge weight in terms of bringing the Malay support and trust to the government. Without such strong Malay-based party in the government, I foresee politics in Malaysia will continue to be fluid in nature. Can UMNO bring such confidence? I don't think so. Based on my observation and based on the survey done at the grassroots level, even UMNO members are still confused and also bewildered by UMNO's role in the current government. In fact, some of the cadres in UMNO even suggested it's better for them to be in opposition rather than in the government, because such coalition erode UMNO's current base support, as written and explained by many UMNO leaders who could be more brazen or more honest in their appraisal of the current government, like Isham Jalil, who's been sacked by the party. And I know here we have our brother Khairi Jamaluddin, who also being sacked by the party for speaking truth to power to the president. But nonetheless, Malaysian politics can move forward when it comes to development and progress in terms of moving away or beyond identity politics. How do we do it? In the past, Tun Mahathir, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, he himself, being a staunch Malay nationalist, managed to galvanize the whole nation towards a common objective called Vision 2020. That vision is driven by a Malay dominant hegemon in Barisan Nasional. And that vision is for all Malaysians, with special and certain emphasis on racial equity. For example, national economic policy, 30% equity or share of wealth for the Malays and Bumiputra. Those are being spelled out clearly in the policy papers and government's delivery. The only way forward for Malaysia to become a strongly united one is to ensure that the project of creating a truly united Bangsa Malaysia can be realized soonest. But such project will require a lot of sacrifices and honest appraisal from all members of the community. For example, as long as there are certain stumbling blocks in education, in culture, in business, in trade, about racial divisiveness or religious differences that could not be managed well, then Malaysia, the project of creating Bangsa Malaysia can never truly be realized, like what we see in Indonesia or even in Singapore for that matter. I believe bold steps must be taken by the leaders, whoever governs the government, not only selling false hopes and giving empty political rhetorics. There must be concerted effort, effective ones, effective policies that could really unite the people of Malaysia through a common and more bigger or more overarching national identity. One of the ways I could suggest could be something to do with national service. not the one being currently run or proposed by the government in Malaysia under the Madani government, but like what happened or being practiced in Singapore and other places, a real military service. Second, there must be a concerted effort from the government to ensure the national language is really being practiced and implemented at all levels of government and civil service. Because without a uniting factor called Bahasa Melayu or Bahasa Malaysia, Malaysian politics will always be having a lot of miscommunication between the leaders and also among the societies. Because we all know, in one hand, one community will speak differently, having different aspiration and understanding about certain issues. Because we lack that common platform to engage and discuss matter. So the only way forward for me is to ensure that our cultural, national cultural policy, dasar kebudayaan kebangsaan in bahasa, the debate must be rekindled so that the right policy must be implemented to ensure that Malaysia can really create its own nationalism called Bangsa Malaysia, like Bangsa Indonesia. I think for this to happen, we need to have a strong political will and a strong and stable political coalition. In my personal humble opinion, it has to be driven and led by a Malay Bumiputra-based party. I know might be not popular in certain audience, but coming from a youth leader of a Malay-based or nationalist party, we foresee that it is paramount and essential to ensure a real, genuine, stable Malaysian politics or coalition could realize and thrust Malaysia forward towards a developed and proper nation state in future, God willing. So thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to engage more during the Q&A sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, YB. So now we will transition into the Q&A section of this panel. So what I will do is actually ask a question first. That way people can begin thinking about what questions they would like to ask. And then I just remind you that we have 2 mics. So actually, if you want to be proactive, you can actually line up in front of the mics. So once we finish here, we can seamlessly go to the floor. So for my question, it's broadly the same question to both panelists, and it brings together the 3 terms that we've been hearing today: trust, power, and possibilities. And so here really what I'd like to do is explore the possibilities of exercising power to earn trust. And so what do I mean by this? So first to Dr. Mujahid. So we know that the unity government actually has, depending on who's counting, about 152 MPs. This is above the 2/3 majority that you need to amend the constitution. So I'm wondering if it is time, or if there's energy and bandwidth to devote some time to what we can call stroke of the pen measures. These are things that can actually have important structural changes, taking advantage of the fact with a 2/3 majority, you can actually amend the constitution. So here I'm thinking about, things like putting forward fixed parliamentary terms, which could help improve the stability of the country's political system, potentially looking at things like political financing, having a political financing act. So is there any appetite in the part of the unity government to really begin to take advantage of this majority to begin to enact structural change? Conversely, from the opposition side, are there areas where you can see a convergence of interests? And so here I'm talking about, the consensus that we had on Undi 18, the agreement that we had on the anti-party hopping bill, and these are all sorts of measures that can be put forward to actually increase the stability and also begin to bridge the divide. So if I could invite our 2 speakers to perhaps briefly put forward 1 or 2 or 3 or even more ideas where there could be potentially some room for bipartisan consensus. Dr. Mujahid, please.
Thank you very much, Francis.
Now, the fact that you alluded Anwar Ibrahim's government has two-thirds majority is in effect a stability that the people are looking for. So, one of the most important things to have majority is to use that majority for a better structural change, as Francis mentioned it. Referring to the fixed parliamentary term, I think I was told that it will be in a pipeline in order for the people to see a more accountable parliament and more transparent. In fact, one of the manifesto Pakatan Harapan presented was to have a two-term prime ministership. That is structural reform, actually, because two-term will give enough time for the prime minister to fulfill the promises. I mean, Anwar Ibrahim has now, 1 year? And everyone is hoping everything from a 1 year, prime minister. And in politics, to have a structural change is not 1 or 2 years. It will take a long planning and trust and stability. That's one thing. And I am very much in support of Political Financing Act. I was one of those when in the parliament was airing my point of view on this, because at the end of the day, this act will help to condone money politics or the interests of capitalists, for example, for their own interests. So yes, I would go on that. And as a member of the Senate, me and my colleagues, Tan Sri, we will try to bring this. And some people have this misconception that only the lower house will come up with an act. But actually, in the Constitution, it didn't say the Dewan Negara or the upper house cannot come up with an act. So we will see to that the Political Financing Act will be finally put in the table of the members of parliament. Talking about structural change, I could just recall in the past when there was instability during the change of government from Mahyudin to Ismail Sabri. One of the term Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim and most of the MPs, then we were in the opposition bloc. One of the terms that we discussed with the Prime Minister to be converging into an interest is that we spoke about this to enact and to support the anti-hopping law, Akta Lompat Party, which was very crucial. And although we were in the opposition at that time, but because of national interest and for the benefit of the country, we agreed to support the bill. And it went rightly at the parliament, and it won a majority support for the bill to come up. And today we have already an anti-hopping law in Malaysia. So going back to your question again, Francis, we do need opposition parties who are more concerned on looking into parliamentary reform together, structural reform together. If you're in opposition, it doesn't mean that you have to oppose everything. You have to be a practical and objective opposition. And I hope there won't be no more langkah-langkah or move. We've just had Sheraton, and now we heard the Dubai move. What is this? We were supposed to talk about the nation. We were supposed to maintain that stability. And come next general election, go in and let the people decide. I think that's how we should be, the spirit we should have in the opposition and in the government. That is my humble point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. YB?
Yeah, I do agree with Dr. Mujahid that Political Financing Act is one of the most urgent bill that needs to be tabled and also passed in both houses. And I think I'm part of the committee in Parliament. So we are still in discussion. A lot of things needs to be ironed out. It was not easy to pass the anti-hopping law then. And I think my party was affected by this inexistence of law about political financing. And so definitely we need to push this further in this coming year. But also I would like to propose, which also currently been doing, being crafted by the government. I would like to thank the Speaker of the Upper House, Tan Sri Wan Junaidi, for championing this Parliamentary Services Act. It was repealed in 1992 then, but now they try to bring back so that at least from my side as an opposition member, we know that next time around, we don't have to beg the Prime Minister to allocate us some fund for our constituent. Just because we don't have that act, the executive power could bully the opposition MPs. So now when we have this act, hopefully things will be more stable and also more humane. Whether I in opposition or later Dato will be in opposition, doesn't matter. Because it will serve the good cause for everyone, for the rakyat. So this too could be one of the most important bills that the opposition will definitely support and endorse in the Parliament.
Okay, so now we turn to questions from the audience. Light is in my eyes, so either please do go to the mics or wave your hands. Okay, I can see Meredith, please.
Hi, I'm Meredith Weiss from the State University of New York. Thanks, YB and YB, for your presentations. My question really builds very much on Francis's. And YB Mujahid, you mentioned the balance between practicality and ideology. YB Ahmad Faisal, you mentioned these questions of national unity and moving forward and so forth. And indeed, you both bring up some of these issues. One of the things that's quite striking now with the variety of coalitions that have formed over the last several years is the shifting delineation of what parties and coalitions represent, along with what we've documented in Malaysia as a decline in party loyalty and party identity. So party loyalty among legislators, all of the hopping such that there needs to be a law, and then party identity, especially among younger voters who are an increasing number since Undi 18. So I'm curious, given these points of real commonality, common ground in terms of structural reforms, a desire for stability, a desire for economic development, what do you see as the defining issues, policy issues or priorities for your respective coalitions or your parties within those? How would you see moving forward the political blocs shaping up? Malaysia's first past the post voting rules essentially mandate a two-coalition system. We've got a three-coalition system, but we know that the voting rules will eventually encourage that to wash away. East Malaysia has its own distinctive politics, which have made issues like national language, for instance, more contentious than they might otherwise be. But I'd really like to know how you see balancing that ideology versus practicality such that Malaysian politics can move beyond the imperative of staying in power, of getting enough seats to hold the government or to capture the government, towards policy making and finding both common ground and differentiation.
Thanks, and if we can go straight on to the next question by my colleague.
Hi, Hokan from ISEAS. Again, thank you so much for your very engaging and spirited presentations. My first question to Datuk Sri Mujahid. I'm struck by the first proposition that you raised to debate Islam and Malay identity and Malay issues on the basis of the Constitution. And of course that comes across as something that is noble and magnanimous and seemingly consensus building because it is a written constitution. But we can also see there's so much polarization even in terms of how the Constitution is interpreted, especially related to Islam and Malay issues. So question to you is, what gives you confidence that there can be room to actually build consensus and find compromises to move forward in this constitution-based approach? To YB Wan Ahmad Faisal, Perikatan, your party, they have expressed the interest, the desire to reach out beyond the Malay community, Malays specifically. So my question is how? Right? Is there a specific outreach to the Indian community, to the Chinese, or to the urban? And is it a genuine and deep-rooted commitment that can be sustained, Or will there, how basically is the party, addressing, maybe we'll try this, but if it doesn't work out, they will go with Malay majority and dominance on the peninsula, plus Sabah and Sarawak. And again, not really sustain that commitment towards multi-ethnic, especially on the peninsula.
Thank you very much for those two questions. If I can invite YB first, with Hokan's question about reaching out to the non-Malay community, and then beyond that to Meredith's question about primarily sort of underlying issues, and then if I can invite Dr. Mujahid to follow. Please, YB.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Meredith. You asked a very important question about the role of opposition. Rather than just capturing the government, why not you work together with the government? We would love to initially. But unfortunately, the Prime Minister did not extend olive branch to us. The first thing he said after he became Prime Minister is to accuse us stealing 600 billion. So, and since then, a slew of court trump-up charges being lashed against our MPs and our leaders. So how do you think we, opposition, would like to work in hand with the Prime Minister? So I think the Prime Minister started with the wrong footing, if you ask me honestly. His agenda of reform is nowhere in place at the moment. He's busy killing us, the opposition. So that's why, of course, being politician, when you rattle us, we have to rattle back. I'm being honest here. We will not stop or give a free passage for the government to bully us like that. Because you can see even the chief ministers, I would share with you here, they've been expecting, since election is over, we focus on common cause, on developing the region, or the state that being underdeveloped like Kelantan, Terengganu. But I was told things are still not moving. I don't want to wash dirty laundry here in front of a foreign audience, but I hope you can read the latest The Economist to understand what is the current state of the government of Malaysia today. And I know some of our backbenchers MPs from the government are also complaining to me. We are sharing the same sentiment, maybe less severe than me, about the slow pace of reform promised by the Prime Minister. Right, you said, Dr. Mujahid, just 1 year. But 1 year in 5 years term consists of 20% of your political time or your mandate. So we must rush things if the Prime Minister really wants to have his second term. And with regard to the question about non-Malay communities, how does Perikatan Nasional would like to tackle that? We had, at the moment, as we all know from the results, we have that strong mandate from the Malay Bumiputra communities, but we are doing something. For example, Bersatu, we have established our own associate wing, or Sayap Bersekutu, we call it, where the head of that wing is considered as vice president, just like me. I'm equivalent to vice president in Bersatu, and he is part of the Supreme Council in the party. So he joins and participates in all important, critical discussion, policy making of the party. Secondly, in Perikatan Nasional, of course, we have Gerakan, we have SAPP, who lives with also GRS. Sabah is a unique, different animal altogether in terms of politics and democracy. But the point being, we do have that strategy and plans, but yes, it still falls short. Well, some accuse, when we interview or ask some of the ambassadors and embassies in Malaysia, the main worry is not so much Bersatu. The main worry is always PAS. Oh, but is it true PAS? Does PAS really convey that imagery of extremism, racial, or that kind of bad vibes towards the non-Malay? I don't think so. There are many miscommunication, or I must say, wrong projections of certain reports about PAS in terms of race relation or interfaith engagement. I mean, Dr. Mujahid, he was in PAS, he knows better how PAS is, how PAS DNA is, and the only way forward, I think, is PAS also realize this. If you were to observe I cannot speak totally on behalf of PAS, I'm not from PAS, but I observe how they are managing the current fluidity of Malaysian politics by positioning more professionals to be the frontliner for PAS. But PAS being PAS, an Islamic party, the religious group or religious scholars will always play a central role in policy making and also strategic planning. But in terms of putting forward more acceptable to the middle ground in terms of candidates, I'm sure in the next round of election, after seeing the Samsuri effect, I'm sure there will be more coming under PAS stable. As for Bersatu, we are not much different in terms of framework than UMNO, be honest. We are a Malay party that was given birth by former UMNO leaders who fought the scandal of 1MDB. But we recognize there are flaws then in UMNO in terms of practicing patronage politics, for example. We do not want the Malays or Bumiputera to have free ride policies in terms of the government that dishes out contracts and others. But it's not easy to decouple this from the struggle. But it has to be done for the sake of for the country. So one of the ways perhaps is for us to really bring more non-Malay members so that they can be part of our setup and also perhaps run in coming election and be part of our representatives and provide us more critical views on the shortcomings of our understanding about non-Malay communities and others. So I believe those are some of the things that are already being institutionalized by the party recently.
Thank you so much, YB. Dr. Mujahid, please.
Oh, I've got 44 seconds to answer.
I will exercise my prerogative to give you another 2 minutes
fellow has
if
taken
necessary.
the floor
Please.
as an opposition. Oh, thank you very much. Dr. Meredith, my good friend. When you talk about opportunities, when you talk about possibilities, when the parliament was hung, it was His Majesty Yang di-Pertuan Agong who prompted the idea of unity. It was not Anwar Ibrahim. And if you ask me if His Majesty Yang di-Pertuan Agong has prompted such a big idea, and he's non-politician, and he's apolitical, that should be the start for the other blocs to accept this notion. I can't answer or rebut on the issue of Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim was witch hunting a position, because he's not here. He should be answering that question. But the opportunity was lost after the after the election. And don't ask me why. He will know why better than me. That's one thing. Whereby you were talking about common ground. There are lots of common ground. Malaysian politics has just got to move on. If you are an opposition, be an objective opposition. Be a progressive opposition. If you are a government, be an objective government. Be a progressive government. And the only thing that I find challenging as a politician, representing my party, the Trust Party. Yes, I knew PAS. I knew what PAS was. I don't know what PAS is today. Okay? So we form a National Trust Party, in English it's a Parti Amanah Negara, was to become a center party, was to take all people to consensus building, and to be more constitutional in our debates. And that is the greatest challenge for my small party called Amanah. But I believed the way forward for Malaysia is the middle ground. And coming to the question of my good friend Dr. Lee, Islam-Malay discussion, I would again reiterate that it should be based on constitutional basis. And there are other issues that comes together with all this is economic prosperity, which is very important. economic growth, which is very important. And Malaysia has always been built based on national unity and prosperity. This is where I think all parties from different ideologies must come together and see the need to shift from an identity politics towards a principle-based politics where it will benefit all Malaysian. And if you talk about common ground, economy is all not just about Malay. It's all just about Chinese, it's about Sabah Sarawak, it's about Indians. When you talk about ideal politics, national unity, it's not just about Malay. Yes, Malay is the core, but shifting from identity politics to principle politics will be a better choice. At least that's what I feel, and that's what Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim is moving towards. Thank you very much.
With this, unfortunately, we have run out of time. The time police is signaling that I must finish. But while I don't think we can say we have a consensus, certainly we've had in this panel a practitioner perspective that have been perceptive, persuasive, polemical, and that have shown us potential possibilities for productive policy making for prosperity and peace. So with this, please join me in thanking our two panelists.